Alright, welcome to Bible Smack. Okay, so I am doing this for the third time, having a lot of technical difficulties. But basically, this is a response to Genetically Modified Skeptic on 4 weird questions or blah 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 blah. Alright, so basically, what are the 4 questions? Well, the first one is asking about why would God communicate through literature? This is really not a Christian question. It's like a postmodern question because basically it's this idea that there's no truth and everything's objective and you can't communicate. The problem is that everybody, who's civilized communicates through literature. There's lots of atheist material that's communicated through literature. You can understand what somebody's saying if you understand the context and certain laws of hermeneutics and stuff like that. So basically, God communicated in several ways. He communicated orally. He communicated through visions and dreams, but he communicates in the Bible and through several genres to make the message palatable in any form. And, people typically, you can just summarize the gospel saying John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. So basically, that is why God communicates that way, and it can be understood. He's like, well, what about all these different interpretations? And then he brings up Jehovah's Witnesses on the issue of blood. Now, in Genesis 9, it says, you shall not eat blood. The Jehovah's Witnesses have their own system of thought that they impose upon the text, and they have a hierarchical structure to make everybody forced to interpret the Bible the same way. And several cults and sects do that, and that's typically the real reason why we have interpretive issues, is because you have groups that force interpretation upon people. But the Genesis passage is very simple, which is why nobody really gets into that issue except for them. Okay, and their issue is like, well, you can't do blood transfusion. Well, number one, Genesis doesn't have anything to do with surgery. Hey, it's not saying anything about how people do surgery. Number two, blood transfusion is not eating. Okay, so it's a really wild and really stupid idea. And so if you don't impose things upon the Bible and force a system upon the Bible, but you just simply take it according to its context, then those things can be taken out of the way. Now, then there was one dealing with Pascal's wager. He says, why don't we believe in the cruelest God? And the cruelest God is magical. Well, basically, the issue with the wager, what it should be, is an issue of priority. Okay, the atheist argues a priority that says that they can put out their most idiotic and stupid ideas and then never have to defend anything they ever say, as long as they just attack other people and mock people. Basically, they'd say, well, you have to prove to me that God exists. I never, ever, ever have to justify any of my ideas to be true. And that is what is the reason that you should be an atheist. He'll say, how I became an atheist. Okay, well, if you became, then you believe. And if you believe, then there has to be a reason for it, for other people to listen to you. Instead, what we have is propaganda, bigoted, evil propaganda. Okay, persecution propaganda, intolerant propaganda. Okay, that's all that's being pushed or published here. Okay. But basically, in real life, when your life is in the balance, You need to know what's going to happen on the other side, because life is not as long as people think. And, as a pastor myself, I see this. I've been to a lot of funerals just in the last couple weeks. Okay. But basically, so, Pascal's wager is, um, what's, going to be more important. If you're going to die, is that going to be a good excuse to say, well, I just didn't care about morals or anything, just no higher power or accountability. I just kind of did my own thing because you had to prove it to me. No. Okay. You are limited. You are weak. You are the one that's not going to live forever. So you have to rely on something greater. And if you rely on, well, there's laws of science, you better have reasons for that. Like, what made science? What makes science true at all times and true in the future? If it's evolution, how did science evolve? How did time evolve? And what makes time stay time? What makes matter stay matter? Because if there's absolutely nothing but chaos, then chaos doesn't seem to have an order, and science is an order. That's why it's called laws of science. All right. So he starts off and he says that he's not going to address any other God. Okay, just the Abrahamic God and the Triomni God. Look at Genesis. Okay, there's no talk of a Triomni. Okay. And he picks weird omnis to begin with, okay? Omnibenevolent. If you're going to boil the definition of God down, you're not going to use omnibenevolent. I mean, especially not if you're a Jew or a Muslim, okay? But basically, God is love, but love is secondary. Okay, why is love secondary? Because love is good. Okay, love has to be good to be love. So you have to understand what good is before you can understand what love is. Or in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it says love has nothing to do with evil. Okay, so if love has nothing to do with evil and it is good, then you have to know good first. So you should be starting off with a good God. Okay. Also, God is omnipresent. Why is that not in the definition? Oh, because you have a different definition and a different God. Okay, if you have a different God, then you're a liar because you said you weren't going to deal with a different God. All right, so this is a straw man. Okay, but it's interesting because you talk about the cruelest God, and God is cruel to evil, things that are against God, that are immoral, things that are wrong. God is against those things. If you were a murderer, God is against you being a murderer, murdering people in the image of God. So, therefore, God is cruel to you in his damnation of you, because what you represent is what you always represent and what you always are. So, God is cruel to evil, but God is love. God loves all people, and he loves all things. And so, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for the ungodly. And so that is God's way of expressing his love, is giving everyone a chance, an opportunity to be saved. All right. Why not skip straight to heaven and earth? Why is there an earth? Why can't we just have people in heaven? Well, there are people in heaven, but they're not people as far as humans. They are angels. So God has already done that. And if that's what you want, then we don't need people at all. But yet there is something that is desirable. Okay, there is a virtue of the physical earth, and the angels desire things of the physical earth. And so we know there's a good thing to the physical earth. But then you have the issues of free will, the issues of freedom, and for God to create free individuals that can think is superior to God creating things that cannot think. It is an added quality, and so that is a better quality. But God does not end with the floaty place. Okay, God does not end with the ethereal heaven. No, there is a new heavens and a new earth. And if you really were a Christian, if you really were a fundamental Baptist, you would know that there's a new heavens and a new earth talked about in the book of Revelation. You claim to believe these things, and you are the biggest expert on all these things, but I think you're just virtue signaling. You are just bringing up all these different ideas and saying, I've debunked it because I just called it stupid. It kind of reminds me of the Princess Bride, where he's like, the guy's trying to prove how, it was Ron Howard's brother, but he's proving how intelligent he is. And he's like, Socrates, Plato, idiots. Okay, so anyhow, not, but that's the whole atheist mantra, is that we have to demonstrate things. All right, God is bad for free will, and then he's bad for predestination. No, he has a plan, he has a will, and he also willed these things for freedom. So, he's getting the best of both worlds, and yet you're hating him for both worlds. And you can't hate both because they contradict each other. So, let's see here. Animals. Okay, why does God give animals pain? Why does God give people pain? Pain and suffering. Why do people suffer? People suffer for doing wrong things. If you go and you want to smash your head against a brick wall, you will have pain because you're not supposed to smash your head against a brick wall. It is a survival mechanism. If you believed in evolution, you would believe that pain is a survival mechanism. And so you'd be okay with absolute chaos giving you a survival mechanism. But if you think that intelligence gives you a survival mechanism, somehow that's wrong. How is that wrong? Okay. So God has given creation survival mechanisms, and we wouldn't even have to worry about most of that because we would live in paradise if it weren't for the evil that is represented in the choices of, Adam and Eve. And of course, there's also Satan, Lucifer, that goes involved with that. And those things will be judged. All right, catch you later.